When you do go into pre-production, you have your non-negotiables and you kind of work that out with your director. So if it is a horror film, what's the most important thing to the story? And we kind of work our way from there on what we want to put on screen.
Welcome to Between Frames, a conversation series from May Films. And I'm your host, Anthony Ortiz. Audiences rarely notice the details that make a film feel real, but they always notice when they're missing. Today, I'm joined by producer and Skye Film Studios co-founder, Skye Bleu. We dive into what separates an average short film from one that truly feels professional. From production value to collaboration and the countless details audiences notice without even realizing it. Now, let's get between frames.
Skye, thank you so much for being a part of Between Frames. We're really excited to talk to you. You're part of Skye Film Studios, which you and your sister have been killing it. You're consistently making work, doing premieres, getting back on set, and then you just keep the ball rolling for years, and you're both very young and driven, and it's very inspiring. So super excited to have you with us to talk about film and festivals. And on this episode we're talking about what makes a short film feel professional. So from as a producer, what is your perspective? Because there's a lot of elements that could elevate a short film beyond just like looking good.
Mhm.
Anybody could get a cinema camera, anybody could get like all the lighting package and all these things. The goal is not technical perfection. Like when it comes to feeling intentional, making the film immersive and memorable, like your films definitely stand out. So like, could you talk a little bit about some of your projects that, like, what were the decisions you made that you felt made your films memorable and stand out?
I mean, definitely my partner in crime is Savannah. So she's a very intentional director. And when she has an idea for a project, we definitely get on the same page and we both put intention on what we want to stand out in the film. So when she does have an idea and we write the script, we definitely know what's going to be, our top priority when making the script and then putting that on screen. So we have conversations before we go into production on some of the priorities of what we really want, how much we want to spend our time and effort on specific aspects of the film. So that's really important. When you do go into pre-production, you have your non-negotiables and you kind of work that out with your director. So if it is a horror film, what's the most important thing to the story? And we kind of work our way from there on what's at core, what we want to put on screen.
So between you and Savannah, in terms of both your process and like how you just mentioned having those conversations about what are the non-negotiables and what do we want to be intentional with for this project, like, are those conversations starting at script stage, or are you locking the script first and then having those conversations, or how does that work between you two?
I mean, a lot of the times it happens like simultaneously. So she'll have an idea, and then when she starts making her drafts of the scripts, then I'll go ahead and read it as well. And then if there's not enough time for that particular scene or something like that, then we want to put priority on specific scenes that make the film what it is. So the story points that are, very important to what she wants to put on screen, that's what we're going to focus on. So if there's, 10 scenes in the short film, then the most important might be three that are, story changing. And those are going to be our top priority scenes. And those are the ones that we're going to, have in our mind going into pre-production and having enough time, having enough people around those specific scenes, just so we make sure that those are, come across the best.
So you have non-negotiables with
Hmm.
storytelling.
Yes.
uh, what are your non-negotiables for production aspects, like equipment and so on?
Yeah, I mean, Being in the industry for, how many years we are right now, definitely, sound is always super important. And getting a DP and director that work really well together has been something that I've seen is very important. It is a collaboration at heart, as most films are. So, in order to, um, you know, get the best product in the end, you definitely want to have a trusted team that is all on the same page before you even head into or head into production.
Right. Yeah, I 100% agree. Sound, you definitely don't want to neglect sound, because,
No.
we've all been in film festivals where there's that one film that the sound is just like, oh God, like it's just not, it just has like a lot of like background noise, or it's not really cleaned up, or it doesn't have like a proper mix or like a professional mix or
Yeah,
so.
and definitely, investing in the post sound is sometimes equally as important. Getting a great scorist and a sound mixer and dialogue. I mean, it can add up, but once you find a collaborator, then you'll most likely end up using that team for a long time.
I definitely like to work with the same people over time
Hmm.
because they definitely understand the same standards, you
Hmm.
know. And a lot of these things, like sound mistakes, like we've all done these things. Like I've had projects where my sound was just horrific, and I didn't really like notice until like later, you know,
Hmm.
where I rewatched it and uh, or maybe watched it on a big screen or something, and then realized like, oh damn, the sound is really bad. Like I didn't put enough resources or budget into that. We put some intention on like the visuals, but like sometimes, especially in the early stages, like we forget that audio sound, that's half of the experience. So like immersive sounds, Foley, sound effects, sound design, and music, like you mentioned, like these are all
Hmm.
things that um, are supposed to serve the story.
Yes.
It's not like uh, that it's all about the music. The music serves the story. Everything serves the story. The camera serves the story. All these things. I have very similar non-negotiables for myself as well. There's a lot of these things. Make your films professional. And
Hmm.
bring it to a standard where because when people go to the movies, like the general audience, they're not thinking it. They're not even like thinking about these things. They're not thinking about how
Hmm.
good the sound is. They're not thinking about how nice the lighting is or all these things. They're just watching a movie and they're pulled into it. And it's because everything is so fine tuned and
Hmm.
professional and clear, um, that we don't even think about it when we're watching a movie. But
Yeah.
if it was bad, if the sound was bad in the movie, then the people would be like, "Oh man, what was up with that movie?" Like, but it's part of it. What is your perspective on like what the audience actually notices versus what they're gonna feel? And how do you approach that in your process when it comes to the early stages, pre-production into production, and bringing it all to life?
Yeah, I mean, I think setting the tone for the kind of project you're about to make is really important when it comes to what as a producer, you have to think about, okay, the color that you're gonna eventually use that sets the tone for, the film, the actors, um even from like the title font to the poster, it should all be cohesive on the message that you want to have within the film. And I think that a lot of the times sets apart some of the short films that we see is like there's a theme and a tone that is very seamless throughout the whole marketing and part of the film, from the end credits, the song choice. It all comes from most of the time a singular, tone that the director picks, and then everyone kind of works together to create that vision. And that a lot of the times makes it more enjoyable because it's less distracting for the audience when they don't even notice when something is off in some of the things. So, like, if you have the end credits and you have a happy song, or I mean, it could be intentional if you have like an upbeat song on a horror film. I've seen that before, but it's all with intention. But if you want, your standard horror film or things like that, then everything has a purpose, from the title sequence to the end credits to the song choices to the poster to the marketing. All of it has intention.
Yeah, those are things we don't think about, like fonts and marketing or like posters or just how the tone is going to play out throughout your entire project, not just with the film itself.
Hmm.
Because you have all these other tools that you're going to utilize to market your film and get it into film festivals and package it, and we're not always thinking about these things when we're like writing our scripts and talking about our films. But which is okay because at the end of the day you just have to tell a story. But like, you get to a point where it's like, all right, I have to think like almost like an entrepreneur. Like I have to market myself and I have to make everything cohesive. And
Hmm.
that's definitely the smart way to do it, because when I'm for me as a film curator with the Santa Fe Springs Film Festival, like we definitely look for those things. Like
Hmm.
we sometimes I take a look at the poster first, sometimes I watch the trailer, but other times I watch the film first because just because I just want to like go into it, just want to jump right in and not really like have any preconceived notions.
Hmm.
And then after I'll look at the rest of their package, like, all right, cool, film is great. What does their poster look like? Do they have a poster? Like sometimes
Yeah.
films don't even have posters, or like, or they'll have like a vertical or like a horizontal landscape
Hmm.
poster for some reason. But um, or they might not have a trailer, or they might not be doing anything on social media. So it's like these things are considerable because when your film is getting considered for festivals, they look for these things. They look for, all right, which are the films that were memorable? Which are the films that have a cohesive campaign going on?
Hmm.
Um, and which ones are active on social media? Which ones look like they're actually doing things. They're actually present, like a digital presence and like a in-person community presence, and you know, and then it all leads to are they going to show up? Are they going to come to the festival
Hmm.
and participate and network and do Q&As and the whole thing? So it makes a lot of sense to think about these things.
Yeah. And it,
Uh,
it makes a big difference to put effort in those kinds of decisions that I've seen. And, you just have to take everything you do about the film as an opportunity for more storytelling for the film itself.
just to bring it back to like some of the other things that you mentioned, like the editing and like the pacing, um, sound and all these things that are utilized to its fullest potential to immerse the audience in the story. Like it's kind of funny because like sometimes they say like, oh, the best editing is the films where you don't even like notice the editing, because then it's like good editing. Like what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you agree with that statement? Or do you sort of have that philosophy when it comes to pacing, because you could see films where like the pacing is really just all over the place or it's not even
Hmm.
cohesive. And then there's other films where you could feel that the pacing is intentional.
Yes, I definitely think there's a lot of things that should not be a distraction in a film in order for your real, storytelling and the performance to really shine. And those kinds of things are, bad sound can be distracting, and you don't want the audience to be watching an actor perform and then have a thought, oh, the sound's a little off or the editing's off. All those things that audiences feel that are off, you'll just be able to catch them when you're, doing the post and the editing and all that stuff. And when you watch it again and again, you'll catch the things that, oh, something's a little off. Then you go in and you fix it, and then you watch it again, and you just go back and forth between your editor, your producer, and your director. And then, so a couple more sessions in a editing room or a color room definitely can make a difference when it comes to, catching those really small things. And that just comes with experience. And, sometimes editing yourself on other projects can build those skills of just, oh, something's off. And then you have to figure out what it is. It could be, it could be a sound that's a little off or the editing pacing that's a little off. But when you eventually do it enough, you can pick up on those things, and you don't want to change the wrong thing. So if there is like a performance and you're like, oh, the eye line, that's what's off, not the actual performance or the sound or the score, then it's just about, changing, the shot angle in order to bring out the best performance. So you want the best version of everything to kind of come together so that what you're watching on screen makes you feel something and you're not distracted by the little things as much as possible.
So when you go to film festivals, what is it about films that tell you the filmmakers know what they're doing?
Given everything, the most important is, the story that they want to come across and how they did it and how well it did come across. So if I watched a film and I loved the story, but the lighting was a little bad, that doesn't really change the fact that I still love the story. So there's other films that are like, oh, that had great sound score, and or another one that had a great actress that I really like that actress. So even if there are things when I go to festivals that not everything is perfect, there usually is things that stand out to me, and those are the kinds of things that I want to, think about on my next film. And that's why, it's important to go to festivals so you can get ideas and, see things in other people's films that you really love and you want to start implementing. Or if you see a film, you're like, oh, they did something really cool with the end credits, and you can start thinking about maybe you want to do a version, if it, the stars align for your next project, something similar, something that you can take ideas from and make it your own on your next one.
Yeah, we're building an online course about um, film festival strategy, and these are some of the things that we talk about is like going to festivals and getting expired, not just to go and network, because going to festivals and networking events specifically for networking is a huge opportunity,
Hmm.
but going just to see what kind of work is out there and seeing what does the market of films look like right now, like what kind of films are these festivals accepting, like what is their whole like collection look like the past few years, and watching those films and seeing like how they stood out and why they were memorable, and and then like, getting inspired. Like, I get inspired all the time when I watch other people's films. It's and also motivated. Because sometimes you see
Hmm.
films that were put together very contained and like low budget, and you're just like it makes you kind of realize like, damn, well, I should just do my idea. Like, I shouldn't wait for a perfect situation. I should just go for it. But at the same time, we have to be intentional with these things because we don't want to go too off the rails of like a little too like run and gun, because you need to keep things a professional standard too. What is your process perspective for like casting when it comes to like making a short film feel professional?
Yeah, I mean, auditioning is a great way. And also eventually you might, build your own kind of actor network, work with people that you really, work well with. And sometimes there's a synergy between directors and actors that it's a little harder to find, but once you do find it, it works really, really well for the team. So working with as much people as possible, but then paying attention to when there's a great synergy with certain team members.
If you have chemistry with an actor, chances are you could still get the most out of that relationship. Keep working together, keep helping each other out. That's a
Hmm.
great way to build your network of actors. Because as filmmakers, we definitely need actors. Obviously,
Yes.
unless you're gonna like star in your own movie or something. But um, we need actors to bring these characters to life. So,
Hmm.
um, what do you and Savannah look for? when you ask yourselves, does this actor fit the character? Like, not just are they talented, but like,
Mhm.
do they actually fit this character?
Yeah, I mean, when we auditioned for I remember we did like an open audition for one of our shorts, and we had just posted online, and we got, there's 50 plus auditions, and when Savannah, the director, just looks through the auditions, there's just certain ones that just stand out because they just embody the character, or um, they're really talented, but they also bring their own little, their actor perspective to the character as well. And that's really great to see sometimes, because sometimes actors do bring something new that work really well for the character, and end up using that kind of mannerism, or you know into the film as well.
Sometimes actors surprise you. There's been times where we were doing auditions on a project, and like something that the actor did in the audition, where you just kind of like, maybe they said the line a certain way, or maybe they changed the line a little bit, or maybe just the way they said it, like the performance, where we were kind of like, oh dang, that kind of changes that beat a little bit, you know. And then we kind of go back to the script and look at it again and just maybe make some changes or like maybe some
Hmm.
adjustments. And we might have not have done that if we never like saw that in the audition. So then it's like, oh, there's something about this actor that's kind of bringing uh more out of the scene, like so stuff that we're not seeing, or stuff that we maybe couldn't have written.
Hmm.
But, like, yeah, it's an interesting process of like some of the things that you discover if you get like a lot of actors into the auditions that are not really getting it, like they're not really bringing it to life, and then you start to question your material, like, oh damn, like maybe our script isn't that good, like out of maybe like maybe there's a problem here, like maybe I don't know. But then at the end of the day or something, or maybe the last audition, they just do something amazing, and you're like, oh my god, great, like okay, this works. I'm not crazy. Um, Sometimes things like that happen. So like, what kind of visual choices do you and Savannah make when it comes to making films feel professional, but maybe limited in resources or limited on budget? Because production design could also be something looked over. You know, like sometimes you could find a location and, you know, for the sake of time, or maybe you don't have the eye for it. Sometimes you just shoot something just the way it is. But it's like sometimes the production design, the set design has to be a little bit more intentional for the
Hmm.
story, for the film to come across professional. But if you're limited on that sort of eye, or if you're limited on resources or budget, how do you approach those sort of visual choices to keep that cohesive professionalism for your films?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been times in which, we don't have the biggest budget in the world. But that's when, Savannah or any experienced director will take that into account. So if we need to, have like it's an auditorium, and there's lots of extras that you would need in theory, but maybe for that specific scene, you do something that makes sense for that scene, in which you don't have to see everyone in the audience. So it's just about, keeping it mindful for the story, but also for the budget. And if that is a specific scene in which you need to see everyone in, the audience, for like a theater scene or something like that, then those are going to be the things that you have to discuss beforehand. It's like, it is very important, top priority, that in the specific scene the camera goes over about like 50 plus people. So that's when you have to have the decision. Okay, that's a priority. We'll have to put budget in, and just make sure that we do have 50 people in that scene for that one camera scene. But if it's not part of like your top priority, then you can have 20 people and still have the same message, tone, storytelling, purpose. So it's a back and forth between producers and directors on what, is most important to the story with the budget that you do have, and making sure that, okay, if it's really, really important and imperative to the story, then we'll get 50 extras and we'll make it work. And if we have to pull from another part of the budget in order to get that shot because it's so important, then that's just what we'll have to do. But if it's not, and we can get away with 20 and still have the same, message come across, then we can compromise on that. But it's just going to be about communicating with your director and the most important things that you want on screen. And that's when you can kind of decide, where the budget should go. Should it go towards, having 2 cameras so then we can film faster, or more extras so we can get that specific shot? So it's a give and take.
Have you ever shot with multiple cameras?
I've shot it with multiple cameras before. It definitely is a lot easier. It's great to shoot with 2 different cameras, but that means you also have to have 2 different first ACs. You have to have a camera operator. So, if you need 2 cameras, then you'll have to, you have to make it work. But that's when a good producer comes along. You're like, okay, if you want 2 cameras, this is what it's actually going to cost, or this is what you'll actually have to do in order to get those 2 cameras. And then go back with your director and see what you can do.
Yeah, we just talked to Ken Gregory, and he just finished his film, and they shot with multiple cameras, and they finished like a day early on the schedule because they were just so efficient. I haven't done that yet. Like, we talked about doing it for one of our projects last year, but the logistics and the budget just didn't really want to play out, so we just talked with the one camera. And 'cause, yeah, multiple cameras, that could save you could save you entire days.
hmm Like if you're running against the sun, or, the cost of having, fake rain
Yeah.
is more than having an extra camera and cameraman and setup, then those are like the offsets that you have to think about. Saying, okay, we only have 4 hours for daylight during sunset, then we might need to have 2 cameras that day in order to capture all that. Or else then you'll have to run the risk of having to film a whole other day. And that might be more risky than just having 2 cameras on during that sunset 4-hour period.
Have you and Savannah ever thought about shooting on film, or you just want to stay digital?
I mean, she really likes like the Alexas and stuff like that. So that's kind of something that she's most comfortable right now. I'm sure she would love the opportunity to shoot on film if the opportunity, like if it came across and she was given that choice. But she definitely has her go-to camera and lenses that she loves to work with. So it's kind of just it's what you're most comfortable with, but it's also important to, take risks. And if you are given the opportunity, then, you learn as much as you can about shooting on film and you make it work too.
What would you say that like the top 3 non-negotiables they should have in place for them to initiate their project?
Lighting, sound, and actors would be my top 3, but only after your story. I would say story is always, that's why you're doing a film in the first place, is for the story. So after story, then I would go to those 3 things in order to make it look the best.
Kind of looking back on your journey of like, what's something that stands out to you that you could rewrite? It's not to focus on like, oh, dwelling on regrets or negativity, but like, is there anything that you would rewrite in your career?
I mean, I don't do most of the writing, but there's definitely some things I was like, oh, I wish we had an extra J just to work even more on that. But that's more of like a budgetary, question than a rewrite. But yeah, I would say, I'm proud of the stuff that we do, and sometimes, the budget's not always ideal, but you kind of make it work. And once you create a final film, you know you go out and you present it to the world, and and it serves its purpose even if it's not perfect. But yes, there's always the budget. There's not enough time, not enough money, even no matter what kind of budget you have sometimes. Yeah, like maybe for one of our aliens, we didn't have, enough time to do a full like prosthetic stuff like that. Just because of, time and resources. But that's definitely something, I would have loved to have more opportunity to work on one of our alien prosthetics.
Yeah, sci-fi. That's
Yeah, when you're working with the sci-fi, fantasy, genre, those things can be very costly. And sometimes you just have to, work with it camera-wise on what you see, what you don't see, and, the illusion of us having the audience assume what something may look like based on other things like lighting and sound and score like that. But it's another ball game of doing those kinds of big prosthetic things as much as, uh, you love to see them on the big budget films. It's an art to those, kinds of costumes and makeup and prosthetics and special effects. It takes a lot of talent and skill and craft to make those things look the way they are in the the box office films.
you utilizing the audience's imagination to your advantage could definitely uh pay off. You know,
Hmm.
like if you take it all the way back to like the movie Jaws, like
Yes.
the like you don't see the shark in that movie very much because like the it didn't work. Like the shark was constantly breaking down
Hmm.
and you know those stories and so you don't see the shark very much and it was always a real nightmare for the crew when they were making that movie. But then it kind of like it really works for the film because it's scarier when you don't
Hmm.
see the shark. You don't know where it is.
It's a
Um,
very iconic horror film for only seeing the shark only a couple minutes in the
oh,
whole thing. But
yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of films. I think there was one film that we watched like maybe a couple years ago, like with the 70s or the 80s. I can't even remember what it was, but it was some like monster
hmm.
horror movie where like the whole movie you don't see the monster, and then it was like really suspenseful, and then like right in the end they showed it, and it was like a letdown because they didn't. It was very not really scary looking. It just looked like it looked kind of gimmicky, or it didn't really look like it was professionally like designed, and well, that wasn't really up there. Like I was scared when I didn't see it. Now that I saw it, maybe they should have just did something else, or just leave it, keep the imagination
Hmm.
running with that sort of thing.
Yeah. And
But
that's the beauty of horror, as it's a great genre to play around with, and you're kind of like in there with the audience, and you're along with the ride with them because you guys are both using your imagination to make them feel something and to tell a story.
either of you ever felt like something really worked in your films or in a particular project, but then once you showed audiences or once you put it out there, it actually didn't work? Like or it didn't have the effect that you thought it would, and maybe the audience gravitated towards something else.
I would say like there was this when in the editing room, sometimes you think one thing works better, but then when you do work with the editor and they do something a little different, they show you, oh, this actually, the pacing of showing this before that actually works much better. And there's been lots of instances like that, especially in the horror films that we've done, that you have a little room to play with when it comes to suspense and when the best time to show stuff and to not show stuff. So that's, it works great when you have an editor that can collaborate with you, and you're like, oh, okay, it actually works much better to do this instead of that, or linger longer, or cut this shorter, and play around with it.
Well, what is it about horror, sci-fi? What is it about those genres that you gravitate towards? Like, why do we like to tell stories in those genres?
I think there's a lot of room and flexibility and leeway when it comes to what the audience is willing to see on screen, than compared to drama. I think there's a little bit more of a grace, and you can do a lot more, not absurd things, but you can go bigger, go more, experimental sometimes, and it does land with the audience. I think it's easier to take risks in horror and still be able to pull them off, versus comedy is very difficult, especially with timing, and comedy is very subjective, where I think horror is also subjective, but there's a lot more freedom when it comes to storytelling.
And there's definitely a big audience for those genres, and film festivals love horror and higher concept films and stuff. They definitely stand out. Um, when it comes to film festivals, um, how do you and Savannah approach film festivals for your films? Or is there a particular um, are there particular festivals that you all like to submit to, or do you just kind of like you know Hail Mary with a bunch of film festivals, or like how do you approach festivals?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely intention with certain films. Like one of our earlier ones, Albatross, had like a Mexican lead, and it was a woman lead. So sometimes going towards, those ones, it was thriller, horror, Mexican, and female led. So kind of going, towards film festivals that celebrate that and put those ones, showcase that one a little bit more, then those are great for that kind of film. And then for like more of the sci-fi one, then going towards, the just film festivals that accept sci-fi, and that's kind of like what they want to see. So it's like it's great to submit to things that showcase that specific genre or specific story, just because you get the best audience to see them. If you go to a horror film festival, you're going to get horror fans, and you might enjoy your horror film even more because that's just the genre that they like it, and it's an experience for all of them, to watch it together if that's their favorite genre.
There's so many film festivals out there, and
Yes, there's a whole bunch of them. So I think just keeping in mind, like, oh, what makes sense, like the most sense for this specific film,
yeah,
because sometimes applying for every single film festival that's available to you, it's going to be costly, and it might not be, the best use of your time. So you really want to, think about which ones make the most sense for that specific film or for you in general. Like if there's some ones that, celebrate female directors, then that's something you might want to go to, or someone that celebrates, you know, Latinos, then that's something that you want to go to, because those are the ones that you can also have greater network opportunities. If you go to like a Latino, film festival, then they might have more opportunities for people that want to get in and collaborate with other Latino filmmakers.
what's a film that you'd like to share with us that we should watch? I know you and Savannah go to the movies a lot, right?
I know
So,
we do go to movies. I just saw Sheep Detective, and that
oh
was
yeah,
one of the more original films I've seen in theaters. It was super heartfelt, super I saw it with some of my like little cousins, and it was honestly super sweet. It stole the hearts of, a 10-year-old, but also me and Savannah as, in our late 20s.
yeah.
So, and it was very different than most of the movies that I've been seeing in the theaters. And it's like one of those, live action but animation kind of ones. So that one was really, really sweet. It definitely, it was super heartfelt and a little mystery.
Yeah.
And yeah, who done it? But they made it unique. And sometimes those are way more fun to watch than a sequel or a prequel or something like that. So I really commend the originality of a film like that.
Nice. Yeah, that I haven't seen yet, but when I saw the trailer, maybe like a month ago.
Yeah.
I
And I'm
thought,
sure
like,
the pitch for that was, oh, murder mystery of sheep detectives. So it's just
yeah,
like I can only imagine the room in which that movie was pitched, and people were probably were like, I don't know, but they pulled it off. It was amazing. Got great ratings, and so I really enjoyed it. And, I appreciate those kinds of films that, are a risk, but sometimes you pull them off and you make a great film.
yeah, exactly. That's one of the great things about a great pitch is like what like it's hard to be super original. Like some would say nothing is 100% original anymore. Like
Mhm.
everything is always inspired by something. Like there's that great book. I don't know, you probably heard of it. I don't know if you've read it, but Steal Like an Artist.
Mhm.
That book is all about that. Like um, talking about how nothing is really um, 100% original. You're going to get
Mhm.
inspired by different things, but it's not. It's not you. Don't want to just get inspired by like one thing, or you don't just
Yeah.
want to copy one thing. You want to like copy multiple things. Like, how could I take this genre with this trope and just sort of
Mhm.
mash them up together and tell a story and
Mhm.
have a strong meaning and then let me package that and come up with a great pitch.
Mhm. Yeah.
And those are the things where it's like, oh yeah, that pitch is interesting, it's different, we're trying to do something different. And then sometimes you see movies like The Sheep Detective get made. It's like really
Yes.
exciting, and then the audience, like who's the audience for that type of movie? Like, kids, like you said, you brought your the little cousins, and then you're in Savannah, but the whole family connects with it. So it's like
Mhm.
it's an amazing thing. But thank you for sharing that. It's on my list for sure. I'm sure people will add it to their list because
Yeah.
I definitely still want to see that movie.
I still, forever love going to the movies and sitting down in the chairs and seeing it with a bunch of other people. There's always, you can't replace going to the movies like that.
Absolutely. Do you prefer the recliners or the traditional movie
I
seat?
prefer the recliners.
Okay.
I do that part. I do like as changed in theaters is I love a good recliner seat.
Yeah, and it's also convenient that it's reserved seating now. Because I remember back in the day,
Yes.
you had to get there early to get a
Oh
first
yeah.
seat. And if you were late, you were like screwed. Like you were like in the front, like left corner,
Hmm.
just like watching the movie like this. Like,
Yeah.
um, that's cool. I have a friend who he's like completely diehard against recliners in
Oh.
theaters. Like he, he's always going to get a traditional seat. He's like, if I'm going to lay down, I'm gonna watch the movie at my house. Like so.
That
But
is that's hardcore.
yeah, you know, but it's cool. So yeah, thank you for sharing that movie. I think it's going to be a great recommendation for a lot of people. And before we send you off, where could people find you? Where could they follow your projects?
Our website, skyfilmstudios.com, and that's where we'll do updates, and you can kind of find every, social media thing through, our website and any other updates that we have, or our trailers or links and all that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for joining Between Frames. If today's conversation resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might enjoy it as well. Also, if you have a filmmaking question, challenge, or story you'd like to share with us, email us at info@mayfilms.studio and we may feature it in a future episode. You can find more conversations, films, and updates from May Films in the links below. Until next time, story first, always.